It's the beginning of 2022 and the age-old question of is X amount of VRAM enough? It's popped up once again. The debate is as old as gaming graphics cards, to be honest. I remember the debate between 128 megabytes and 256 megabytes. Heck, I remember sitting on the fence of which model of the 8800 GTS I was going to get, 320 or 640 megabytes. And now we're in the gigabyte debate. The question today is, what does 4 gigabytes of VRAM look like at 1080p on modern AAA gaming? Well, in this video, I want to go over a couple of the biggest titles from the past year and try to shed some light on that hot question at the moment. To start things off, I feel like the answer is obvious, but what spurred this question here right now? Well, the recent launch of the Radeon RX 6500 XT, if anything, kicked off the debate of the usefulness of launching a new mainstream graphics card with 4 gigabytes of VRAM. Last generation, the RX 5500 XT and the GTX 1650 Super seemed to hold things down just fine. And I've been gaming on the go with a mobile GTX 1650, so I figured I'd take a handful of some of the biggest games to launch recently and see just what the demand would look like when they were used in 1080p gaming with a 4GB GPU. Now, I didn't do this experiment with a Radeon RX 6500 XT, mainly because I don't have one here in my office, and because this applies to many more GPUs that people are still using. A GPU I do have with 4 gigabytes of VRAM and current driver support on hand is the GTX 1650 Super, so I'm going to use that for this comparison. In order to monitor VRAM usage, I used Windows Task Manager. I also used GeForce Overlay for performance numbers as well as GPU-Z for monitoring on screen so you can see it all in action for yourselves. The big advantage of keeping the Task Manager going is that thanks to an excellent update from Microsoft, you can see both the dedicated VRAM in use and the amount of system memory it's sharing, both of which are super useful for what we're looking at today. As far as the testing platform, I'm using the X570 test bench with the Ryzen 7 5800X, 32 gigs of DDR4 3600, and the games are run from a T-Force Cardia C440 PCIe Gen 4.0 drive. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's jump into the results. First and foremost, we've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And why not toss one right up here with the very high preset to see what happens? Yeah, the GTX 1650 Super completely blew out the VRAM budget and borrowed 3 gigabytes from this system. Basically, you want to run these settings relatively smoothly at 1080p, you're going to want 8 gigabytes of VRAM. But hey, it's surprisingly smooth in the benchmark, but not so much in the game. Even at medium, we're still blowing the budget. Now, it isn't viable either. So, if Assassin's Creed Valhalla is on your wish list and you're on a 4 gigabyte GPU, then be prepared to make some serious compromises in order to keep the gameplay smooth. I play on the lowest settings at 900p on my laptop, but that's a 14-inch screen, so it's not that bad, I guess. But let's look at what a difference it makes in actual in-game image quality. From this scene, we can see a clear difference in distant details where the lighting is affecting the trees further out and the details are much more defined in a very high setting. It's not an experience-breaking difference, but it's quite noticeable in actual gameplay where stuff is popping in and out much closer to your character. Alright, on to Resident Evil Village that features an engine that can eat up VRAM quite quickly. So, checking out some presets here, let's start with graphics priority first. And surprisingly, it doesn't manage to completely blow out the budget and does a decent job with the performance and VRAM usage. Dropping things to balance yields pretty much the same result, but with even better performance. Changing things to recommended pulls the settings down even further, but provides an insane performance jump. That performance jump is mostly in the game switching the rendering to interlaced, which effectively drops the resolution. Now, if you want more information about how that compares in detail, well, we've got an analysis video on that topic. Visuals hold up nicely, and it's good to see a modern game run this smooth with so little work to be had. Side by side, you'll likely be hard-pressed to find a difference between balanced and graphics priority. Even with the game using the interlace settings, the overall aesthetic of the game holds up, but it's clear there's a whole lot more aliasing going on when used over the recommended options. So, unlike Valhalla, I think you can have a good time with a 4GB graphics card with Resident Evil Village. Guardians of the Galaxy is next on the list, and this game is super fun. One of my surprise favorite titles of the past year. But this game is pretty stressful on the VRAM and performance in general for this class of graphics card, especially if you want to run the game at very high settings. If you want those settings, you're going to want to look for more VRAM, as you're going to blow out the budget again with this game easily, and in this game the results are pretty hard stuttering during the gameplay. Moving to medium smooths things out, but the game does still reserve a bit of system RAM for asset swaps, which happens pretty often and is normal. The low preset makes the game much more playable and brings the frame rate up to a smoother level, but it's still a decently hard game to run. Visually speaking, you're not going to leave much off the table from moving from medium to low. It only has an obvious effect on lighting reflective surfaces like the white spores and metallic surfaces in the game. Honestly, not enough to write home about, so as far as Guardians of the Galaxy is concerned, it's doable with 4 gigabytes, but not as bad as Valhalla. Lastly, we have God of War, a game that many people are really enjoying at the moment, and even if you only have 4 gigabytes of VRAM, this one is a pleasant surprise with ultra settings tapping out 4 gigs at 1080p, and you're more limited here on the sheer GPU grunt than you are the VRAM. Original settings, however, are way less stringent on both the VRAM and the GPU core, resulting in a much smoother gameplay experience. So, if you're on a 4 gigabyte GPU and don't mind the original settings, then game on for God of War. And honestly, once this game is going, I don't think you're going to really care that much about the small extra details in the background. Don't get me wrong, better shadows and textures are super nice, but it's really not a game changer here. Just a nice to have. So, what did we learn about 4 gigabytes performance here? Sure, testing focused only on 4 titles, but they are the kind of games that people who are trying to enjoy on a PC at 1080p would likely be wanting to kick around. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is passable, Resident Evil Village did a really good job, Guardians of the Galaxy was a bit too stressful, and God of War delivered. All in all, if you're still on a 4 gigabyte graphics card, you can get by for now depending on which title you want to play. But after doing this and looking and playing the games with this card, I don't think I could recommend buying into this level of performance and features right now or going forward. It's just a little too underperforming, and quite honestly, it's barely passable. It's just fine if you already had it, and you should be okay-ish for a little while longer, but I don't think that I would invest in it at this point unless you are just focusing on a back catalog of older games. So what do you think about 4 gigabyte graphics cards in today's time? Are you using one? If so, share with us your thoughts, tips, and tricks for getting the most out of them in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribed here at PCWorld for even more PC hardware and software goodness.